What we've been talking about here comes under the category of theology of work. And I was privileged to make this the focus of my DMin program, read a lot about it, and learned a lot of things I never knew existed related to work. One of the things I learned about was called the Puritan Circle of Knowledge. And the source for this is Dr. David Hill Scott. There was a tool, a mental tool, called the Puritan Circle of Knowledge, which had 4 basic components. Number 1 was that God initiates all things through his creation of everything. There is nothing that exists that was not created by God. So that's the starting point for the circle of knowledge. The second point is that human beings discover what God has made, and this discovery largely happens through school. Step 3 is that human beings, now that they have this knowledge, they imitate God by making secondary creations based on what they learned and discovered from God's primary creation. But they're actually imitating God, according to this paradigm here, which has been forgotten largely, but this was the Puritan paradigm for work. And the 4th step was to glorify God through that imitation. They see what God has done, they discover how it works, they imitate God by making a secondary creation, and through that secondary creation, God is glorified through human occupations. Vocation, for example, is connected with calling, your vocation, your profession. The word profession is from the Latin. I can't pronounce the Latin right. Who teaches Latin here? Okay. Maybe you can pronounce those Latin words. Professionum, and the next one? Professio, meaning public declaration or to declare openly. Is that right? Okay, that's right. And, by the way, around the year 1200, it referred to vows that were taken upon entering a religious order. It's from the Old French, a religious order. There is some connection here, some overlap between your profession, your public declaration, or your open declaration of what? It's your declaration of faith. That you are professing, declaring your faith through your work. How you imitate God in the way you make furniture, or whatever it is an act of profession. That is your profession. It's an act of faith. We've totally lost that. What's your profession? You're a teacher, okay? You're professing your faith through how you teach. You're doing it as unto him. And it's all blended together into this theology of work, which we have largely forgotten. Okay, so I want to leave that with you to think about and meditate on. And now it's your turn. You all have something you've figured out that you want to contextualize. What was your activity?
Teaching kids the do's and don'ts of how to make a slide presentation. Like, you don't put an entire paragraph on a slide.
Great. I wish I had taken your course here. That would have helped me out tremendously. I want you to go through the 99 truth statements in relation to your focus. Try and capture 5 or 6 that resonate with you about this work, and then just draw them around the circle in this, that you have already identified. What we're trying to do is bring meaning to this project. Not just because you are the teacher and you say, thou shalt, you know. What is the personal meaning that you can get based on the meaning that you can bring to it by seeing it in the context of this larger whole, bigger picture of how God sees it. The tool can either be used by you as a teacher to prepare for the framework of this unit, but more importantly, it's to be used by the individual student themselves to think through how they personally can connect with the bigger picture. The tool actually is more important for the student than the teacher. Okay. And I would recommend having the kids use this form because then it's personalized. Okay, and then there's the back. Discuss with your neighbor, the two of you, talk about your project. What is your activity? What sort of bubbles did you come up with? Now I want to give you an example of a real person who I had the privilege of knowing. He's now in heaven, but my wife and I started going to a church, and they had an adult Sunday school class. And the teacher, week after week, would have these great lessons, very biblically oriented, and just, I knew that this guy was really pouring himself into this adult Sunday school class, and we were benefiting from it. His name was Gary Starkweather. I got to know Gary and discovered that Gary was the inventor of the laser printer, and he was working for Hewlett-Packard. When I got to know Gary, he was working for Microsoft because we lived about 10 minutes from the Microsoft headquarters up near Redmond, Washington. He worked in an area of Microsoft where there were about 120 innovators. Imagine this, 120 innovators whose sole purpose was to create new things so that Microsoft could market them. Okay, 120. And he said, yeah, we spend our time creating new things, and once a year we display our ideas in a gigantic room, and Bill Gates comes in. He looks at all of these ideas, and he says, okay, let's take this one further, let's take that one further, blah, blah, blah. He worked with that group. So I said, could I come into your work area with my video camera and interview you on a day when you're not working? He said, yeah, come on in on a Saturday. Nobody's there. We came in, and I took these pictures. Now, on the whiteboard here, Gary's pointing to the whiteboard. That was not staged. I mean, that's the way it was. You just came in there. These people are obviously thinking out loud on the whiteboard together, creating new things. And the place looked like the office of a mad scientist. Okay, all these people creating new things. So here's my interview of Gary. What I want you to listen for, and I didn't prep him for this. I didn't say, well, be sure and say this. No, I just, okay, Gary, why are you here? What are you doing? Talk to us. And I just asked him questions, and this is what came out of it.
Since he made us in his image, I believe that to a great extent the creativity we possess is because the Creator put it there. God put things in us to tool developers and creative individuals, and I think it has to please him when he sees us use those faculties to make something completely new. What do I add as a human being? What does God's image in me generate that is representative of him? And I think that can be done in any skill. And therefore, I think when we use these skills, it can't help but give him pleasure, and hence we feel that pleasure in us. You're using what I built in you. You're unique. There's something special about each one of us that we ought to try and cultivate and ask God, what is this unique part of me that I ought to really make work for you? And when we do that, it has to, I think, improve our relationship, because he's seeing in us respond to what he built in us. And therefore, my perception is I should compete in the open market, because that's the best test of my faith. If my faith is really what I say it is, then it should be able to excel in fields that those who don't have that faith play in. And I think as Christians, we need to take our gifts and put them forth in a world which sees excellence from us. The real credit doesn't go to me. It goes to him who created me. It's very hard for the water pot to say, look how well I pour, and not give credit to the potter. Many times if I'm having trouble with an idea, trying to understand something, I'll ask God, can you help me with this? I'm trying to understand. And it's not like he cheats for you. It's like when you encourage a child to learn something, you want to bring it out of them. You want them to discover it, but you guide them. And so I kind of feel I ask God to guide me, help me discover what's there. And sometimes some of the greatest ideas are the simplest. Probably the best one in my life was when I was trying to create the laser printer. And has a little spinning mirror in it, and it had to be extremely precise. And the question was, how will this ever be producible when it's got to have such a tiny angular error in the mirrors? And I sat down and thought about that and went back to first principles in optics, since I was an optics guy, and looked at something and then said, well, that's interesting. That would work if it was that way. Then it dawned on me this was something called a cylinder lens. So I drew it out and said, this looks like this would work. And then I thought, no, that's way too simple. Nothing that simple could solve this problem. Well, it solved the problem. It cracked the rock, okay? And it was the closest to having a eureka moment I've ever had in my life. While Einstein wasn't a Christian, he said something very profound once. He said, science is the game we play with God to find out what his rules are. And to me, this is the sort of thing I feel here. And I see how the great precision with which the universe is assembled. Some of the things had to be accurate within 15 decimal places in order for the world to work the way it does. By chance? Oh, come on. So often if I write papers, and I've done this a lot recently, I'll tell them, for example, when we're doing a display, that the human being was designed with this capability, and see if they catch it. Rather than the human being evolved to have peripheral vision. The human being was designed with color and peripheral vision capabilities. And I know some of them look at it a little bit and they don't know whether to ask a question or not, but that's what I put it in there for. Read it.
Here are some premises that shaped Gary's behavior at work. He said, since he made us in his image, the creativity possesses there because the Creator put it there. God put things in us as tool developers and creative individuals, and it pleases him when he sees us use those faculties to make something completely new. And then when we use the skills God gave us, it can't help but give him pleasure, and hence we feel that pleasure in us. You're using what I built in you. I remember when I was 10 years old, approximately, I said to my mother, I remember right where we were in the hallway outside my bedroom, and I looked up at her and I said, Mom, there's only 2 jobs in this life that are worth doing. Oh, what's that? To be a pastor or a missionary. Now, nobody told me that. I never heard a sermon on that. I had what I would call today a sacred secular split in my mind. I had an idea that there were certain jobs and tasks that were more pleasing to God that were sacred sort of tasks. And in that box, I put missionary work. And I don't want to minimize missionary work. Please don't misunderstand me. It's important, okay? Helping people to know how to receive Christ as their Lord and Savior is really, really essential. And I don't want to minimize that. But I didn't have a vision for this world, for this life. I felt that setting my focus on this world was anti-scriptural, and we can go into that. But it was not what I would call a vision of the whole. I would say this, that the purpose of education is to bring agriculture, business, law, economics, technology, journalism, art, civil service, plumbing, as well as preaching, and everything else into alignment with the Creator for His honor and His glory in the here and now, as well as the future, as His deputy representatives on assignment. First chapter of Genesis, where God said, hey, let the Trinity is having this conference, and they're saying, hey, let's create human beings in our likeness, and in our image, and let's let them rule over this planet. Wow. And so He did, they did, and Jesus did the creating, we understand, at the direction of the Father. And so they create human beings. And then they give these humans, Adam and Eve, an assignment. Say, okay, I want you to fill the earth, populate it, and I want you to rule over it. Not only the fish and the birds, but the material planet as well, and all its resources. This was my mental paradigm as a 10-year-old boy. That's not an uncommon paradigm, even amongst Christians, or particularly amongst Christians. So I'm suggesting we dispense with this. And I'm suggesting that Christian education can go a long way towards dispensing with that paradigm. And the Awesome Activator tool is just one way to help in this process. Here's a suggested alternative paradigm. Instead of thinking of higher and lower work, sacred, secular, turn it about a quarter turn here, and think of any activity that is humanly possible. Selling cars, for example. That business can either be done in a way that brings pleasure to God, is in line with His purposes for humanity, and is a way where the kingdom of God, the kingdom of light, can penetrate a community, actually through the way you sell cars. How you sell cars, why you sell cars, can actually be a point of light, shall we say, in Portland. And the same can be true for education, sports, politics, you name it. There's a choice here that we can either bring those things into alignment with the will of God, or we can do those things in a way that is in conflict with God's designs, or contrary to His will, or in line with the domain of darkness. And I prefer this paradigm. It makes sense to me. It actually opens up the whole realm of possibilities for being a representative of the kingdom of God in the entirety of the community, and not just in the area of traditional church work. And again, I'm not minimizing that. We need pastors, we need missionaries. But I'm just trying to say that it wouldn't be great if we could raise up a generation of young people who say, I can see myself going into business as a disciple of Christ and as a representative of His will and His purpose in the earth through the way I do my work, and how I do my work, why I do my work. And I think that would make effect on the broader culture. That's my assumption here. Dallas Willard, I think you know who he was, he's in heaven now, but he wrote some great books on this topic. He says there's truly no division. He says there's no division between sacred and secular except what we have created. And that is why the division of the legitimate roles and functions of human life into sacred and secular does incalculable damage. Wow, that's a strong statement. To our own individual lives and to the cause of Christ. He says holy people must take up holy orders in farming, in industry, in law, in education, banking, in journalism, with the same zeal previously given to evangelism or to a pastor and missionary work. And I agree with that statement. And that's a vision that I would hope that the Christian education world would pick up. I want to share this video interview of the pastor of the church that had the Christian school that I was working with. And then next to the pastor is the principal I worked with. And this is a short edited interview, but it'll give you a feeling for what was being accomplished there in this area of theology of work and its effects in their culture.
From your perspective, why is getting theology of work into the elementary and secondary school, why is that important? And particularly, why is it important for Nigeria?
Thank you very much. That's so critical because we want them to be able to see that from the onset, especially from the elementary school, that the Bible is not just a church book, but it's a life book. But we often see the Bible as something that is so limited to Sundays. But we want them to be able to take it to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and from the classroom to the kitchen to everywhere that they find themselves.
Shagun, tell us a little bit about how your incorporation of theology of work into the academic curriculum shapes the thinking of your students. How does that happen?
It's mind-boggling for them. When you ask them questions on subject matter, let's say we're talking about mining and you're asking them, how does God view mining? How does a miner fit into God's plan and perspective? Or you're taking biology or you're taking economics and you're teaching them that, and you're making them to see, the God's perspective about economic matters, how God wants us to undo money as it is stated in the Bible. It's for some of them, it's been a wow moment with them.
Did I just hear you say that you're actually helping your students to see that earning money can be a godly thing? Did I hear that correctly? I thought making a profit was a sin.
That's what the church taught us.
You're actually helping your students to see how economics fits
Absolutely.
into God's purpose
Yes.
for their life.
All of our teachers, they're beginning to see that there's no aspect, there's no subject matter in the curriculum that they cannot find a biblical perspective to. One of the children said, so it looks like I've actually not been thinking accurately about what I want to be in the future. God has a particular plan for me. And I think I need time. I need time to be able to think accurately and put God's perspective on the future that I'm desiring.
And it sounds like you're also getting across the idea that if they do go to work for the mining company in your area, that too is the work of God. Is that correct?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah.
That's a mind-boggling thought. A lot of people think if you want to do the Lord's work, you want to do what Pastor Dot is doing. And but we don't be working in the mines as the work of God. But it's amazing when that gets in a student's head and they see, yes, I can serve God through that vocation is powerful.
Yeah, especially when it, learned at an early stage.
Yes.
Yes, especially when an elementary school pupil understands that from age 5, 6, 7, then it's that kind of person will not go into any kind of confusion. There is no work on earth that God cannot use. So that changes the whole equation. To be able to work, to be able to expend energy, to be able to see how you can cooperate with God in his creative kind of quest, it brings so much joy.
What you're just describing gives meaning to school.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
you're going there to actually become equipped to work well. This is important stuff because you're shaping the paradigms of the body of Christ. And I also appreciate the fact you're taking the long vision here. This is not a quick fix. And part of that long vision is affecting the thinking of children. And so this is like a 30-year vision here, or 300-year vision, actually.
Absolutely. This is the future. This is the future, yeah.
They see that as the future for Nigeria, for their community. Any thoughts or reflections on anything they said? Yes.
It's just kind of interesting how fast the culture can change because, you've got God within the community and then God removed from the community and then, people are kind of like, I don't know what to do. What's my purpose? And so how fast that changes, but then how long it takes to implement that idea back into society.
Yeah. It's not a quick fix. No. Yeah. Most people are like sponges, and they develop their worldview as a result of what they see on the internet and hear and talk and their friends and blah, blah, blah. So it's the culture pressing in on the individual to shape their belief system. And I do think that that's how it usually is. But I don't think that that's how it's supposed to be. Take the time and the effort, and this is what you're doing at this school, to develop a child's view of the world in such a way that it will affect their values, hopefully influence their behavior, and ultimately affect the culture. Okay, you're taking a course here called Biblical Worldview Development, and you see why we emphasize the word development, because it's not a quick, easy process. It takes years. And you're helping students to see how the pieces of life, you're all dealing with pieces, you're helping your students see how that piece fits into the context of the whole of God's view of reality. So now we're on to the third tool, and we only have 4 total in this workshop. The third tool is a way to distinguish or to differentiate truth from baloney. Truth, capital T, God's truth from baloney. When they see films, when they see stuff on the internet, social media, when they read things, whether it's formal papers or informal statements from their friends, or they hear other people giving them input. And that's our daily experience. So we have to be able, as adults, we have to be able to distinguish the truth from the baloney. And that's not always easy. And I want to underscore the intentionality of these tools. This is a way to bring the process up to the conscious mind and help the kids to be able to distinguish or differentiate the truth from the baloney. And why do you say that's true? What support do you have for that biblically? And why do you think it's baloney? So for that process, we've created this tool called the Truth and Baloney Detector, which we'll get into right now. So this is what it looks like. Would you take out a blank copy of your Truth and Baloney Detector? You should all have one in your packet. truth fits into God's big picture, the whole, God's worldview. A baloney doesn't fit the big picture. Okay, sometimes we hear or we read a little truth mixed with a lot of baloney. Often it's mixed, okay? Or sometimes we hear a lot of truth mixed with a little baloney. That's often the case too. Sometimes it's all baloney and no truth. Occasionally, once in a while, it's all truth and no baloney. And recognizing the difference is called discernment. So, the truth and baloney detectors used to determine which elements of a song, a story, a speech, a film, a book, which elements fit the big picture, God's big picture, and which elements do not fit. And I think we'd all agree that it's rarely all baloney. The devil rarely just puts out all baloney in an obvious way. He usually takes baloney and mixes it enough with truth that you swallow it. That's his pattern, okay? So what we're going to do here is to try to eat the elephant one bite at a time. By that I mean we're going to try to discern what is true here about God, and then creation, humanity, moral order, and purpose. Now, can you turn off the lights, Karen? Just want to make sure we get this right here. What is the meaning of this small piece? I'll tell you, it's a small piece of a larger picture. It's a banana. How did you know that? Context. Let's see how well you did. Okay, you ready? Here we go.
I knew it.
You knew it? You knew you were going to be tricked. How did you know that? Yeah. I tricked you. Oh, so sorry. I tricked you on purpose. I deliberately and intentionally misled you. It wasn't easy. I had to find a photograph that little piece could fit in perfectly. I found a photo that had the hillside there, but the rest of it didn't fit. So I created some digital clouds there. You see the real clouds up on the right? You see how fakey the digital clouds are? I had to do that in order to make it, the right color here and there. And eventually I got it right. That is baloney. I have to tell you that is not a hillside at sunset. That is a banana. I'm going to show you a 3-minute edited video clip from Reading Rainbow, which is a kids program. I want you to know I got permission to do this. I had to pay these people about $1,000 for 3 minutes of edited stuff from this program, so I could show you this. But what I want you to see is there bias is there bias? Of course there is. Coming through this children's program in painting a bigger picture that will be misleading. Now, I'm using crude terms. They're not thinking, oh, well, let's mislead kids today. You know, it's coming out of their inner well here of non-biblical thinking, okay? But I wanted to use this program because it speaks to preschoolers. And I want to illustrate the fact that the world doesn't wait till they get to college. No, they're not that stupid. I mean, they start really, really young. Okay, so what happens if the big picture is altered? It's very, very difficult to correctly interpret the smaller parts if you get the big picture wrong. Very, very difficult. Now, I want to divide us up into 5 groups. You'll do the God component. Creation, okay? Humanity, moral order. Purpose. Okay, so what I want you to do is just focus on your area. Don't try to cover everything, but I want you to use the format now. So you're going to have to write fast. Anything you hear or see, anything that's said or implied, okay, that has to do with T, capital T, truth, write down on the left-hand side. Anything that's baloney on the right-hand side, and see how far you can get. Ready? Okay, here we go.
You know, when I look at all of these wonderful things that come from the earth, it makes me want to stop and say thanks. And a lot of people feel the same way.
Mother Earth, we thank you for giving us everything we need. Thank you, Grandfather Thunder Beings, for bringing rains to help all living things grow. Elder Brother Sun, we send thanks for shining your light.
The earth provides everything we need in order to live. The air we breathe, the water we drink, and of course, the food we eat. Now, Mother Nature may grow the food, but it's up to us to get it.
We work day to day with the land itself and Mother Nature. And if things go right and Mother Nature is kind to us, at the end of the year, we can reap our reward, which is cranberries.
It's true that nature feeds our bodies, but in many ways, it also feeds our souls. And potters, like the Naranjo family, even use the earth itself to create their art.
This matter that's extremely silky and soft, it becomes a part of you. You never are disrespectful to the clay in any way. When you begin working and making a pot, it forms itself. And when the pot is ready to close, then it comes together, and when it's finished, it's finished. But it's impossible to try and make a pot be something that it doesn't want to be. Pottery making is our connection to the earth.
When you feel close to nature and realize how much we depend on it, you begin to understand just how important it is that we take care of the earth. That's why these New York City kids are adding a little greenery to their scenery.
Planting trees so we could save the earth. I think we dug deep enough.
Pretty professional work, really professional work. Music, beautiful photography, well done. Well done. Okay. Did you catch any truth in it? Okay. Did you catch some baloney in there? Okay. Both. Mixture. Okay. So what we need to do now is dissect it. We're going to do some dissecting now, some mental dissecting. Okay.